might not be wise to snicker too much while we watch your president destroying our country through his policies that are designed to rip apart our civic fabric through division and discord, and his policies to replace our citizens with immigrants, including the recent spate of over 100,000 Afghans and the more than, get this number, more than 200,000 people per month that are streaming across our southern border, most of whom are totally unknown to us. We have no idea who these people are that we're bringing into our country. And that's exactly how Biden wants it. Now, you could even see his own Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Alexander Mayorkas, coaching these people, these illegal aliens who are coming across the border, and telling them, and I'm reading a quote from him, he's talking about the exceptions to Title 42 that says you've got to be deported if you come across. So he's teaching them how to get around our immigration laws. He says, number one exception is if an individual has an acute vulnerability, such as urgent medical care. And number two, if, in fact, our operational capacity is such that we're not able to execute the Title 42 authority. In other words, if there are too many coming across. And the number three is the Convention Against Torture exception if someone claims torture. Now, here's what you need to know. By the way, in his little explanation of this, he repeats this a couple of times, just in case anybody missed it, in case any of these immigrants who all have cell phones, all have access to the internet, miss the key to how they can get around our immigration law. He repeats it. Now, believe me, this is going to be used by people that are economic migrants from places like Chile, which is most of the Haitians that have just come across, from places like Brazil, and other stable countries where, you really don't have a fear of these things that they're going to claim on the forums. But get this. Now, this is so important. Under Mayorkas's administration of the Department of Homeland Security, migrants don't need to persuade a judge that, for instance, their fear of torture is actually true. By merely filling out the form and saying that they have a fear of torture, that gives them the right to get around Title 42 barrier, to come into our country, and we'll have to put quotes around this, temporarily. Remember, they're just given an advice to come back maybe at a later date, show up for a court date that hasn't been set yet, and maybe explain themselves further. While they're here, by the way, they can go ahead and get jobs, get housing, stay in the U.S., get access to social services. Heck, in California, they want to try to give them the right to vote, right? So also, once they're in the United States, then when they ever have to come before a judge, they actually don't even have to persuade the judge that the claims that they made on the forms were true. And you know why? Because Mayorkas has barred enforcement officers from deporting migrants who do not commit violent crimes in this country. So understand, once they're here, they'll never have to appear for a court date. They'll never be deported. They can have children who automatically become American citizens and who could then apply to bring their relatives over through so-called chain migration. Can you imagine if this was possible anywhere else in the world? What would happen to you if you tried to do this in Switzerland or Germany or even Mexico? Or how about China? Do you have any idea what would happen to you in those countries? You would be arrested and deported. And in the case of China, you might actually just disappear or be held as a political prisoner for some future exchange. But here in the U.S., in our country, thanks to your president, you will be set free, flown or even bused to a destination of your choice, a U.S. city of your choice, provided a free lawyer to represent you, given housing and food stamps, which now even come on a convenient debit card, so you don't even have to be embarrassed in front of others at the store that you're getting welfare benefits, and you'll be given a phone, free health care, and all other kinds of public services and public welfare paid for thanks to the U.S. taxpayer. And by the way, there's a dwindling number of U.S. taxpayers trying to shoulder this burden anymore. And also, you'll be told that this is your right. And anyone who opposes you doing all of this as an immigrant, it's only because they are a racist product of a racist country that you should hate. I mean, this is absolutely insane. Well, maybe now we should hear from your president. And by the way, This is back a few years ago in 2015 when he was still able to speak coherently. You can hear the pride in his voice as he tells us exactly what he has planned for the future and what can only be described, and this time truthfully, as abjectly racist terms. The whole point of allowing illegal immigration is this concept of replacement. Listen to Biden tell us like it is.
An unrelenting stream of immigration. Nonstop. Folks like me who were Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then and on will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength.
That's a source of whose strength? I guess he means the Democrat Party's strength, because they want to replace the American citizens with new voters who are totally beholden to free social services doled out by the government. That's exactly what they're doing here. And remember, that was a clip from 2015. That's why Biden sounded somewhat coherent there. But he did slip up and told the truth, because he thought after Obama we were going to have Hillary Clinton as president, and then there would be no stopping things. And, let me ask you this. Is this anything but a recipe for the destruction of our country and the bonds of our civic life? That's an important question. What are we doing here? And, the Democrats and the communists view it as just another means to an end, right? It's a means to their ultimate power and control. Just more undocumented Democrats for the voting booth, or nowadays for the ballot drop box. They don't care if they destroy our country and our culture in the process, because they're counting on having enough assets stored up on their own to ride out any storm. They don't care if regular Americans suffer, if their lives are destroyed, if they're killed or raped or put out of a job. Hey, too bad. I got to look out for number one. That's the way they think. Another practice liar, another hypocrite too, Roxanne, and frankly a useful idiot, is Biden's press secretary, Jen Psaki. Listen to her being questioned by Peter Doocy of the White House Press Corps. We ought to rename that to something else, but at least Peter Doocy sometimes tries to ask some tough questions. And this is him asking her about whether the illegal aliens walking across the Rio Grande River, literally across the river over an underwater dam, and camping under the International Bridge in Del Rio, Texas, are required to provide proof of a negative COVID test or of having been fully vaccinated before they're then released into our country and shipped all over the country. Listen to the tangled webs that Jen Psaki weaves as she practices her tradecraft.
At the border, is somebody asking the foreign nationals who are walking into Del Rio, Texas, and setting up camps on this side of the border for proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test?
Well, first of all, I can readdress for you or re-talk you through what steps we take.
That is the policy for people who fly into the country. So if somebody walks into the country right across the river, does somebody ask them to see their vaccination card?
Well, let me explain to you again, Peter, how our process works. As individuals come across the border, and they are both assessed for whether they have any symptoms. If they have symptoms, the intention is for them to be quarantined. That is our process. They're not intending to stay here for a lengthy period of time. I don't think it's the same thing.
Listen to that.
It's not the same thing.
She's just a liar. They're not intending to stay here they're intending to stay here forever. That's why they walked all the way up from Chile, or they probably got some bus help while they were in Mexico and other places. But they came all the way from Chile. They're not intending to leave this country. Are you insane?
They're not vacationing.
They're not here they're not here just to look around. I just wanted to take a quick vacation under the International Bridge. These people are coming here permanently, and the administration is just lying to your faces, and they don't even care.
I love how condescending she is. Let me re-walk you through our process. Just how she talks to him is so ridiculous.
She's so rude, but this is the way the communist overlords are going to treat the little peons. See, this is what's coming in this country. I mean, it's already here, but they're also taking steps to make sure that it is ensconced, that we can never get rid of this. And this is one of the steps, bringing all these people over, hooking them on social welfare, and they think they're going to be Democrat voters for life. I mean, just think about the whole story where even Biden spoke out about it and said that Haitians were being whipped at the border. Now, he used the word strapped, which is a reference to brutal beating of slaves, and frankly was intended to evoke that thought in the people that were listening to him. Yet that claim was completely false. What happened? The guy that took the picture said nobody was whipping anybody. That's just what happens to those horse reins as those horses move around and make those tight turns. And already, you remember we had the story, they're taking the Haitians back to Haiti, they're flying them back to Port-au-Prince, they're deporting them. That was all baloney. They're now admitting that over 10,000 Haitians just in this recent wave that have come in across the Rio Grande, they're living under the International Bridge in Del Rio, Texas. Over 10,000 of them have already been released into the U.S., and they will never be leaving. And remember, some of those buses, the Haitian immigrants actually assaulted the bus drivers and took over the buses to pull them over and run off the bus. A lot of thanks, that is, from people who want to come into our country and take up our social services. Think long and hard about these people, folks. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.